the beginning of the century, in 1903, a working airplane was invented by the Wright brothers. This invention astounded the world, and after various models it became a great success in the 1920s. It would end up having a huge impact on world economics, travel, warfare, and exploration, as well as contribute greatly to the process of globalization. World War I started in 1914. It was the first war to involve all the world's great powers, which at the beginning of the war were assembled in two opposing alliances. The Allies, containing the United Kingdom, France, and Russia, and the Central Powers, containing Germany and Austria-Hungary. On July 28th, the conflict opened with the Austro-Hungarian invasion of Serbia. War continued to be waged for the next 4 years in a large variety of ways. In December of 1917, U.S. troops joined the fight on the side of the Allies. By summer 1918, the U.S. was sending 10,000 fresh soldiers to France every day. By 1919, the war was over, and on June 28th, the Treaty of Versailles was officially signed, ending the war and requiring Germany to accept responsibility for the cost of it. At the end of World War I, after the necessity of total war calling for everyone, including women, to work decisively for the war effort, women were taken more seriously, and several began to call for suffrage. Women's suffrage rallies and political campaigns began to sweep through most Western nations. In 1920, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, prohibiting discrimination in voting based on sex. Among the other First Nations to grant women the right to vote were Germany, Great Britain, and Sweden. World War II was a global war that involved the majority of the world's nations. It was fought between the Allies, whose main countries were the U.S., Britain, and the Soviet Union, and the Axis forces, whose main countries were Germany, Italy, and Japan. The war began in September 1939. Germany, Chancellor Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland. Britain and France responded by declaring war on Germany, but took little action over the following months. In 1940, Germany launched its next initiative by attacking Denmark and Norway, followed shortly thereafter by attacks on Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. All of these nations were conquered rapidly. Aerial attacks on Britain were carried out in an intense air raid campaign after France was conquered.
I grew up in a little village called Baddesley 4. I was there for about two or 3 years. That was during the war years. And we were bombed out of that little house in Baddesley. It was on Vine Road, Baddesley. We were bombed out of there. And we went into the district came in, and they took all the children away from their mom and dad. That was me, my sisters. There were 8 of us children, and we were all taken away and put into separate homes throughout the country to keep us safe from the bombs.
Britain remained firm in the face of this brutal assault, and when the U.S. and Russia began their offensive against Germany and Japan, the Axis forces folded from overwhelming pressure and damage. The repercussions of World War II shook the world and rearranged the balance of power. Additionally, the first atomic bomb used in warfare was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945, August 6th. The use of atomic weapons ended World War II and took the world into the atomic age. The roots of the Cold War can be traced to the U.S. and Russian revolutionaries' distrust of one another in the close of World War II. The Bolshevik Revolution that overthrew Tsarist Russia and established the communist state was based on a Marxist philosophy that was in direct conflict with the democratically based capitalist systems of Europe and the United States. In 1947, the Marshall Plan set the battle lines between the now newly named Soviet Union and the West, where the weapons of choice were not guns and bombs, but politics, economic sanctions, and warfare through surrogate states. Over the next 45 years, the Soviet Union and Western Bloc nations of Europe and the US would play out a battle of ideology and markets time and time again in Korea, Latin America, and the Middle East. Historians suggest that the Cold War officially ended in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union under the leadership of Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev and his perestroika reforms. On August 28, 1963, thousands of African American men and women joined for the Poor People's March on Washington, D.C. to expose the American public to the economic basis of racial inequality, to make the case for increased jobs and economic opportunities for African Americans, for equal access to education and non-discrimination in all areas of basic life choice, to realize the dream of a socially just America with true racial equality. The Reverend Martin Luther King made one of the most important speeches of the 20th century, the so-called I Have a Dream speech, where he powerfully summarized the case for the civil rights movement, making connections to civil rights and the Founding Fathers' dream for this nation, and emphasizing the importance of a nonviolent approach to change. He stressed that the civil rights struggle was not black against white, but a quest for the long overdue guarantee of constitutional rights to all of the people of the United States.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
The Great Space Race was a manifestation of the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States for supremacy in technological innovation and space exploration. It was another stage where the USSR and the USA sought to demonstrate their technological and ideological superiority and stay abreast of each other's abilities to move weapons not only within the atmosphere but also through space. The space race culminated with the US managing to place a man on the moon on July 20th, 1969. The Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C. was the location of a break-in into the Democratic Party's National Committee offices on June 17, 1972. The term was later coined to describe a complex web of political scandals. Public hearings uncovered the existence of the secret White House tape recordings, sparking a major political and legal battle between the Congress and the President. Around the country there were calls for Nixon to resign. On August 8, 1974, Nixon delivered a nationally televised resignation speech. The Watergate scandal led to an increased level of cynicism about politics. AIDS, or the Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, was declared to be a pandemic by the Centers for Disease Control in 1982. It has since led to the deaths of more than 46 million people worldwide and over 500,000 persons in the U.S. A cure still remains elusive, and the loss of life from AIDS globally in developing countries has hit staggering levels. It has been characterized by the UN Health Program as a catastrophic human health disaster. Although under development in the 1980s and 1990s by government and universities, the Internet as we know it today can trace its commercial public birthday to 1995, when the National Science Foundation NET was decommissioned, removing the last restrictions on the use of the Internet for commercial traffic. The impact of the Internet since that time has been staggering, utterly transforming both communication and commerce in the US and the world. It may well be the most important innovation of the 20th century that will define the trajectory of the 21st century.